Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Learning Corner. It's been a while. Hello TikTokers, welcome. Welcome my Facebook, welcome my YouTube, welcome everybody. We're going to be reading The Mist of Avalon. I'm really excited about this book. It's a book I've been wanting to read for many years, but it's one that I saw that I was like, oh, it's so overwhelming because it's so big. But yesterday, after we read an entire pamphlet slash book, it was quite a bit. Learned a lot about relativity and things of that nature. I decided let's pull out some books, and then I was like, let's read this book. So I'm really excited to read this book. I was given this book uh, while in the hospital back in 2017, and there's a note in it, and I've been waiting to read it that long. So today we're going to start Mist of Avalon. So I hope you all are ready. I'm only doing one chapter a day, every day until it's complete. It's 51 chapters. That's 51 days. That would be easy. That would be easy. It gives us something to look forward to every day, too, because who knows where this book is going to take us. Adventure time. All right, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure everybody's all set. Here we go. Bada boom, bada bing. I like to be comfortable when I read. It's just, why not? Why not? I don't read the preload. That's just a lot. I'm gonna just dive right in, just so everybody's stress magic. Ooh, pretty good. It's something magical. Hold on. I hope the music background. I like having a background. It's like helps my mind. So, it's okay. Here we go. Book one, Mistress. I'm excited. I'm already excited. Talking about magic. This is gonna be a great book. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? All right. Even in high summer, Angel was a hunted house. The Gray, Lady of Duke. Oh, this is gonna be such a hard book. I'm excited. Gorliss, Gorliss, Gorliss. I don't know these names of them, but I looked out over the sea from the headland. As she stared into the fogs and mists, she wondered how she would ever know when the night of day, night and day, were of equal length. It's so small, y'all, but I can read it. I now understand why people don't read anything. It's okay, baby. Goodness. You'll never know when night and day were of equal length, so that she could keep the feast. Oh, the new year's coming. This spring's been unusually violent. Night and day, the crash of the sea had resounded over the castle until no man or woman within could sleep, and even the hounds whispered mournfully. To tangle. That's what I'm calling it. To tangle. There were still those who believed the castle had been raised on the crags at the far end of the long causeway. 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 I'm going with causeway. Into the sea. By the magic of the ancient folk of Ease, Duke Dolores, laughed at this and said that if he had any of their magic, he would have used it to keep the sea from encroaching year by year upon the shoreline. And the 4 years since she had come here as Dolores's bride, agreed, had seen land, good land, crumble into the Cornish sea. There's a Cornish sea? I'm excited about this. All right, I need more pillows or something. This is going to be a good read here. I just won't be going without falling asleep. But is there really a Cornish sea? And if so, why have I never heard of it? I need to get a map. Yep, I need to get like a globe, something. I need to see the world. Okay. Long arms of black rock, sharp and craggy, extended into the ocean from the coast. When the sun shone, it could be fair and brilliant. The sky and water as brilliant as the jewels glorious had heaped on her on the day when she told him she bore his first child. But Igraine had never liked wearing them. The jewel which hung now at her throat had been given her in Avalon, a moonstone, which sometimes reflected the blue brilliance of sky and sea. But in the fog today, even the jewel looks shadowed. In the fog, sounds carried a long way. It seemed to Igraine, as she stood looking for the causeway back toward the mainland, that she could hear footfalls of horses and mules, and the sounds of voices, human voices, here in isolation, Tatango, where nothing lived but goats and sheep, and the herdsmen and their dogs, and the ladies of the castle with a few serving women, and a few old men to the guard. To guard them. Slowly, Igraine turned, and went back toward the castle. As always, standing in its shadow, she felt dwarfed by the loom of these ancient stones at the end of the long causeway, which stretched into the sea. The herdsmen believed that the castle had been built by the ancient ones from the lost. What city? What city? The lands of Lyonese and Wax. On a clear day, so the fishermen said, their old castles could be seen far out under the water. But the Igraine, but to Igraine, they looked like towers of rock, ancient mountains and hills drove by the ever encroaching sea that nibbled away, even now, at the very crags below the castle. Here at the end of the world, where the sea ate endlessly at the land, it was easy to believe in drowned lands to the west. There were tales of a great fire mountain, which he exploded far to the south and engulfed a great land. The Green never knew whether she believed those tales or not. Yes, surely she could hear voices in the fog. It could not be savage raiders from over the sea or from the wild shores of air. The time was long past when she needed to startle, startle, startle at a strange sound or a shadow. It was not her husband, the Duke. He was far away to the north, fighting Saxons at the south of Ambrosia Aurelianus, High King of Britain. He would have sent word if he intended to return, and she needed not fear. If the riders were hostile, the guards and soldiers in front of the landward end of the causeway, stationed there by the Duke Glorious to guard his wife and child, would have stopped them. It would take an army to cut through them, and who would send an army against Tatanka? I really like that word. I hope that's right. was a time, the Grain remembered without bitterness, moving slowly into the castle yard. She would have known who rode toward her castle. The thought held little sadness now, since um, Lord Morgana's birth, she no longer even wept for her home. And glorious, there's no Gorlois? I keep messing that one up. Gorlois was kind to her. He had soothed her through her early fear and hatred. Stutter disrupts me. Had given her jewels and beautiful things, trophies of war, had surrounded her with ladies to wait upon, and treated her always as his equal, except in councils of war. She could have asked no more, unless she had married a man of the tribes, and in this she had been given no chance. A daughter of the holy Isle, Owl, the holy Owl, must do as was best for her people. Whether it meant going to death and sacrifice, what? Yeah, I'm out on that one. Or laying down her maidenhood in the sacred marriage, or marrying when it was thought, what? Are these people crazy? Oh, oh, I can't. I feel for women so much. They'll do some crazy shit. It breaks my heart. Jeez. Marriage or marrying when it was thought meant to cement alliances. This Agrena had done, marrying a Romanized duke of Cornwall, a citizen who lived, even though Rome was gone from all of Britain in Roman fashion. She shrugged the cloak for her shoulders. Sorry, she shrugged the cloak from her shoulders. Inside the court, it was warmer. Out of the out of the biting wind, and there, as the fog swirled and cleared for a moment, a figure stood before her, materialized out of the fog and mist. Her half sister, Vivian, the lady of the lake, the lady of the holy owl. Sister, the words wavered, and Greg knew she had not cried them aloud, but only whispered, her hands flying to her breast. Do I truly see you here? Her face was reproachful, and the words seemed to blow away on the sound of the wind beyond the walls. Have you given up the sight, Greg, of your free will? Struggled by the injustice of that, Igraine retorted, retorted, it was you who decreed that I must marry Dolores. Orpheus? Or Lewis? Lewis. I'm gonna get this right in a minute. But the form of her sister had wavered into shadows, was not there, never had been. Igraine blinked. The brief apparition was gone. She pulled the cloak around her body, for she was cold, ice cold. She knew the vision had drawn its force from the warmth and life of her own body. She thought, I didn't know I could still see in that way. I was sure I could not. And then she shivered, knowing that Father Columbia would consider this the work of the devil. Oh, uh, and she should confess it to him. True, here at the end of the world, the priests were lax, but an unconfessed vision would surely be treated as a thing unholy. She frowned. Why should she treat a visit from her own sister as the work of the devil? Father Columbia could say what he wished. Perhaps his God was wiser than he was, which Gray thought suppressing a giggle would not be very difficult. Perhaps Father Columbia had become a priest of Christ, because no college of Judaism would have had a man so stupid among them, and so that's the Christ God seemed not to care whether a priest was stupid or not, so long as he could mumble their mass and read and write a little. Oh, this is a funny book already. Earlier, she again herself had more clear, clerk, clerkly, clerkly, clerkly skills than Father Columbia, and spoke better Latin than she wished. The Green did not think of herself as well educated. She had not had the hardihood to study the deeper wisdom of the old religion, or to go into the mysteries of, or to go into the mysteries any further than was absolutely necessary for a daughter of the Holy Isle. Nevertheless, although she was ignorant in any temple of the mysteries, she could pass among the Romanized barbarians as well as a well-educated lady. In the small room off, in the small room off the court, where there was sun on fine days, her younger sister Morgana was 13 years old and budding, Marion, wearing a loose household of undyed and her old frosty clothes about her shoulders, was spinning listlessly with a drop spindle, taking up her uneven yarn on a wall. On the floor by the fire, Morgana was rolling an old spindle around for the fall, watching the erotic patterns, the uneven cylinders swinging, knocking it this way and that with chubby fingers. I like this recent book. I studied about it. Haven't I done enough spinning? Or he's with plain fingers ache. Why must I spin all the time, as if I were a waiting woman? Every lady must learn to spin. Rebuke the queen, as she knows she ought to do, and your threat is a disgrace. Now think, your fingers will lose their weariness as you accustom them to the work. Aching fingers are a sign that you have been lazy, since they are not hardened by since they are not hardened to the task. Wow, this is outrageous. She took the roll and spindle from the mortise and rolled it with careless ease. The uneven yarn under her experienced fingers smoothed out into a thread of perfectly thickness. Look, one could weave this yarn with without snagging the socket. And suddenly she tried of behaving as such. She got, what? But you may put the spindle away now. Guess we'll be here before midnight. Morgie stared at her. I heard nothing, she said, nor any rider with a message. That does not surprise me, Mary said, for there was no rider. It was ascending. Vivian is upon her way here. The Marilyn, no, the Merlin, there we go, is with her. She had not known that last till she said, so you may take Morgane to her nurse, and I go and put on your holiday robe, the one dyed with saffron. What color is saffron, y'all? Not sure. I'll figure it Verghese put away the spindle with alacrity, but paused to stare at a green saffron gown for my sister. A green corrected her sharply. Not for our sister. We're green, but for the lady of the holy owl, and for the messenger of the gods. Regine looked down at the patterned floor. She was a tall, sturdy girl, just beginning to get lengthened and ripen into womanhood. What? Her thick hair, skin, no matter how carefully she soaked it in buttermilk and begged, just can't be right. I missed a sentence. I use what I was like, that don't make no sense. So I read a lot of things, but that don't make sense. She was a tall, sturdy girl, just beginning to lengthen and ripen into womanhood. Her thick hair was reddish like a grain's end, and there were splotches of freckles on her skin. No matter how carefully she soaked it in buttermilk and begged the herbal wife for washes and simples for it, already at 13 she was as tall as a grain, and somebody would be taller. She picked up Maureen with an ill grace and carried her away. A grain called after her, "Tell nurse to put a holiday gown on the child, and then you may bring her down. Vivian has not seen her." Organe said something ill-tempered to the effect that she didn't see why a great priestess would want to see a brat, but she said it under her breath, so that a grain had an excuse to ignore it. Up the north, up the narrow the stairs, her own chamber was full. No fires were lighted there except in the dead of winter. But Corliss easily shared with her waiting limits, 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 and his prolonged absence gave her an excuse to have Maureen in her bed at night. Sometimes Morgaz slept there too, sharing the fur coverlets against the bitter cold. The big marriage bed, canopied, curtained against draughts, was more than big enough for three women and a child. Yeah, these are playoffs. That's how it was back in the day. Gwen was old, was, was drowsing in a corner, and a grin begged to wake her, stripping off her workaday dress of unbound wool and oh, hurrying on her fine gown, laced at the neck with the silk ribbon Marius had bought her as a fairing from Man She put on her fingers some little rings, to, silver rings she had yeah, since she was a little girl. They would go only on her two smallest fingers now, and hung a necklace of amber which Glorious had given her about her neck. The gown was dyed rust color, and had an over tunic of green. She found her carven horn comb and began to pull it through her hair, sitting on the bench and working her comb patiently through the tangles. From another room, she heard a loud yelling and decided that Maureen was having her hair combed by her nurse and didn't like it. The yelling stopped suddenly, and she supposed that Maureen had been slapped into silence. That happened. Or perhaps, as sometimes happened when Mrgaz was in a good temper, Mrgaz had taken over the combing herself with her clever, patient fingers. This was how Irene knew that her young sister could spin well enough when she chose. Her hands were so clever at everything else, at combing, at carding, at making Yoli's pies. Green braided her hair, clasped it on top of her head with a golden clasp, and put her good gold brooch into the fold of her cloak. She looked herself in the old bronze mirror her sister Vivian had given her at the wedding. Brought, they said, all the way from Rome. She knew, lacing her gown, that her breasts were once again as they had been before. Oh, wow. Okay. Morgaine had been weaned a year now, and they were only a little softer and heavier. She knew she had her old slimness back, for she had been married in this gown, and now the laces were not strained even a little. Borlois, when he returned, would expect to take her to his bed again. Last time he had seen her, Morgaine had still been at the breast, and he had yielded to her plea that she might continue to suckle the child through the summer season when she made little make, when she made little children. Oh my God! When so many little children died, she knew he was discontented because the baby had not been the son he craved. Oh wow! These Romans counted their lineage through the male line rather than sensibly through the mother. It was silly. Was it silly? I don't know. Doesn't sound silly. Sounds silly that all this is crazy that this was real though. Even though this is a fictional story, stuff like this really happened. Maybe this is real. I don't know. It was. How could any man ever know precisely who had fathered any woman's child? These Romans made a great matter of working over who lay with their women, locked them up, and spied on them. Now, not that I greatly needed much. One man was bad enough. Who would want, who would want others who might be worse? Oh, that's hilarious. But even though he was eager for a son, Boreas had been indulgent, letting her have Maureen in her bed and continue to suckle her, even keeping away from her and lying nights with her dressing woman, Etera, so that she would not get with child again and lose her milk. You two knew how many children died if they were weaned before they could chew, go up, and her breast. Children, children fed on gruel were sickly, and often there was no goat's milk in the summer, even if they would drink it. Children fed on cows or mares, or mares, mares often got to vomit and die. Oh wow. Or suffered with the flux in their bowels and died. So he had left Jane and her breast, thus postponing the son he wanted for at least another year and a half. Sure. that at least she would always be grateful to him and not murmur. However quickly he got her with child now. I don't know about that too. Edora had gotten herself a belly from visit gone about preening herself. Would she be able she be the one to have a son rather deep in Cornwall? No. The Grand had ignored the girl. Glorious had other bastard sons. Oh, jeez, wow. Like in the halfway. That's a, I need to get some water. This is a long chapter. Let's go. We're doing it. Just actually, yeah, so it's all about that. I'm reading this book. It's I was not expecting it to be so. What's the word I'm looking for? It's supposed to be like fiction, but it's like it's like real. And like that's not right, but that really happens. And that used to happen, and shit like that still happens to this day. And it makes you think while you read. And it's been a while since I've been reading. Like, so I stutter a lot, and I'm just trying to get through the stuttering part. Not for it. I'm actually relaxed, super relaxed. Maybe if I stand up, and I don't want my head to do it. This book, slap that. Oh, hey, okay. Of whom was with him now in the camp of the Morty author? I like these names. They're difficult. I'm a name guy. You know, they're difficult, but I like it. The tar had fallen sick and miscarried, and the Green had enough intuition not to ask Gwen why she looked so pleased at the event. Oh, Gwen knew too much of herbs for Green's perfect peace of mind. Someday, she resolved, I will make her tell me exactly what she put into Atara's beer. No. She went down to the kitchen, her long skirts trailing on the one step, Marquise was there, in her finest gown, and she had put Morgane into a holiday dress, dyed saffron so that the child looked dark as a pick. The green picked her up, holding her with pleasure. Small, dark, delicately made. She small boned. It was like handling a little soft bird. What? How had that child come here? By her lips. She herself, or Mercury, was tall and red haired, earth, earth colored like all of the tribes, glorious, the dark, rough, tall and lean, and a crown of hard for years of battle against the Saxons. Too with his Romans didn't show much tenderness to a young wife. It was nothing but indifference for the daughter who came in the place of the son she should have born. Oh, that's what happened earlier. I be doing dirty things. The queen reminded herself these Roman men considered it their divine right to have the power of life and death over their children. It's crazy. There are many Christians, or not, that have demanded that a daughter not be spared so that their wives might be free once to give them a son. Glorious had been good to her. He had let he had let her keep he had let her keep her daughter. Perhaps though she give him credit for much imagination, he knew how she was, a woman of tribes without a daughter. While she was giving orders for the entertainment of guests for wine to be brought up from the cellars, and for the roasting of meat, not rabbit but good milk from the last slaughtering somewhere. She heard the squawk fluttering of frightening hens in the court, and knew that riders had come across the causeway. The servants looked frightened, but most of them had become resigned to the knowledge that the mistress had the sight. She had the pretend. She had pretended, using clever guesses and a few tricks. It was just as well that they should remain in awe of her. Now she thought, maybe Vivian is right. Maybe I still have it. Maybe believe. Maybe I only believed it was gone, because in those months before Morgane was born, I felt so weak and powerless. Now I have come back to myself. My mother was a great priestess till the day of her death, though she bore several children. But her mind answered her. Her mother had borne those children in the freedom as a tribeswoman should, to such fathers as she chose, not as a slave to some Roman whose customs gave him power over women and children. Impatiently she dismissed such thoughts. Did it matter? Did it matter? Did it matter whether she had the sight or only seemed to have it, if it kept her servants properly in order? She went slowly out to the courtyard, which glorious, oh, one day I'll get it, still looked like, still like to call the atrium, though it was nothing like the villa where he had lived until this book is this book is interesting. ferocious, made him Duke of Cornwall. She found the riders dismounting, and her eyes were at once the only women among them. A woman smaller than themselves and no longer younger, wearing a man's tunic and wooden breeches. Wooden, woolen, not wooden, wool, and muffled in a cloak and shawls. Across the country yard their eyes met in welcome. The grain went doubtfully and bent before the tall, slender old man who was dismounting from a raw-boned mule. Oh wow! He wore the blue robes of a baird, and a harp was slung across his shoulder. Okay, I hope it was this hurtful. I bid you welcome into Tango. Lord Messenger, you bestow a blessing upon our roof and honor it with your presence. I thank you, Igraine, said the soft voice, and Tilsian, Merlin of Britain, Druid, Ballard, Ballard, Baird, Baird, B-A-R-D, Baird, Ballard. I don't know how to pronounce that. Baird clasped his hands before his face, then extended them to Igraine in his blessings. Oh my gosh. Yeah, pause for a second. I'll be right back. Be right back.